Um, what I want to talk about today is an observation I made during my thesis. It is not like a proper investigation, it's more like an exercise I made. I'm going to take the hero's journey, and for those of you who may not know what that is, I will give a brief explanation. And I want to analyze how we can take a template that can seem as simple as that, and we can use it to create very different and very rich narratives. And I don't know, maybe you're writing a book or creating a movie or a D&D campaign, something, maybe this can be useful. Before we start, just some content warnings ahead. If any of you are uncomfortable with any of that, or you want to leave at any given point, you can leave. And also spoilers ahead for Star Wars Episodes 1 to 3, Hamlet, and The Odyssey, which is a short musical film for Florence and the Machine. Okay, so let's get started with the concept itself. The hero's journey, which was originally called the monomyth, was a concept coined in 1949 by Joseph Campbell in his book The Hero with 1,000 Faces, although the word monomyth comes from James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake. It is a standardized path for the hero's adventure, divided in three main phases: separation, initiation, and return. Campbell mentions a lot of heroes: Jason, Prometheus, Gautama Shakyamuni, Moses, Aeneas. But in reality, we could apply this theory to anyone, whether it be hero, villain, any one of us, who has had an adventure of any kind. Maybe you quit your job, maybe you went on holiday somewhere else. So that's why the hero part of the name can be a bit misleading. For his analysis, which he based a lot of Carl Jung's theories, Campbell created 17 steps, that are the ones that you can see in that diagram over there. However, the monomyth has been studied and reinterpreted a lot of times after that. And nowadays it is more common to see it divided into fewer steps. The most famous division was made by Hollywood screenwriter Christopher Vogler in his book, The Writer's Journey, Mythic Structure for Writers. And this is the one that I will use here today because it is shorter, easier to apply and understand, because its steps are a bit broader. And coming from a screenwriter, I believe it feels more relatable to contemporary audiences. It is also worth mentioning that in 1990, therapist Maureen Murdoch published The Hero's Journey, which is an essay that remains very relevant today. However, I will not be applying it to my female character here today because I don't think it fits her narrative as much, and because I want to draw parallels between all three characters. So the characters I will be following here today with you are Anakin Skywalker, again, only from episodes 1 to 3, Hamlet, and the character of Florence Welch in the short film The Odyssey. So again, spoilers. Let's get started. Step 1. Our heroes will begin in the ordinary world, whatever that may look like, supernatural or not. They won't enter where we will be coming the supernatural realm yet. For Anakin Skywalker, that is his life as a slave with his mother. Even though he does find some joy and excitement in pod racing, that does not disrupt his reality. In the case of Hamlet, we will meet him months after his father's passing and the marriage between his mother and his uncle, his father's brother. And although he's grieving a lot, we find that he has made sort of peace with his reality. He's just finding it hard to adjust to it. And Florence, we will find her having a seemingly very normal conversation with her partner in her car. Although the images will be mixed with ones that announce an upcoming storm. In this conversation, she's talking about a nightmare she had the previous night, and her partner tells her that he didn't want to wake her up, and this is where we will get this piece of dialogue. She says, do you think if you've been through something catastrophic, like a storm or an earthquake together, or something like horrendous, it will bring you closer together? He says, yes. She says, yeah, but what if they were creating a disaster within themselves? And this line is what's going to give rise to the upcoming story, and to the 3 upcoming stories in reality. So step 2, the call to adventure. The hero is presented with a problem or a challenge or an adventure to undertake. From this moment, the hero will no longer be able to remain indefinitely in the ordinary world. When Jedi Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi find Anakin, they realize he has a very high midi-chlorian rate, meaning that he's very strong with the Force. So they offer to take him and train him as a Jedi. Horatio, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern have witnessed the ghost of the late King Hamlet. So they alert the Prince Hamlet about it. And when he confronts the ghost of his father, he tells him that he was murdered by his brother, the now King Claudius. And the Carter, Florence and her partner are in crashes with the start of the song, What Kind of Man? This event will symbolize the beginning of her destructive year. This will not be a nice adventure. Step 3, a refusal to the call. This one is about fear. The hero will have to face his biggest fears in the door of this new adventure that's opening in front of him. The hero will not fully commit to it, and there will need to happen something bigger, a change in his reality, a figure of the mentor appearance, something that will convince him to take this adventure. For the case of Anakin, he has already packed his things and is ready to leave when he changes his mind because he does not want to leave his mother. Hamlet, even though he listened to the ghost of his father, he is very indecisive for the first moments of the play and wanders around talking to himself. This is when we're going to get the famous to be or not to be part. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. He is a bit unsure of what to do and of whether to believe the ghost of his father. After the car crash, Florence is disoriented, and with the song How Big, How Blue, How Beautiful, she then proceeds to walk into a kind of purgatory. Set in Mexico, we are now inside Florence's mind, where she is divided between walking alone or needing her partner, being carried by him, as we see in the image. The song playing a bit later is St. Jude, the patron saint of the lost causes. She sings, somehow through the storm I couldn't get to you, O St. Jude, referring to the storm that has already come. Step 4, meeting with a mentor. By this time, the stories will have introduced a Merlin-like figure that's going to play as a mentor for our heroes. Finally, Anakin is convinced to live with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, meet with the Jedi Council. Qui-Gon Jinn suggests that Obi-Wan should become a Jedi Master and teach Anakin, but however, Jedi Master Yoda senses much fear in Anakin and does not approve of him becoming a Padawan or an apprentice. For Hamlet, easy. His father will be his mentor, his father's ghost. He will appear multiple times throughout the play. And in the case of Florence, there is no such figure. Christopher Vogler says that the mentor figure can come as a character, but also as a book or any piece of knowledge. In the case of Florence, she is looking inside herself, looking for advice, and we see in her mind's world that we are now in, this figure that approaches her and says, why are you traveling alone? Are you lost? So that is a source of knowledge. Step 5, crossing the first threshold. Now the hero finally commits to an adventure that was proposed in the Call to Adventure. This is when the actual story will start to begin. After the fight with Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn dies, and after that, Obi-Wan becomes Jedi Master, and the Council rethinks its idea and accepts that he teaches and takes Anakin as his Padawan. Everyone feels like Hamlet has gone mad. His dead parents think he's grieving, but Polonius thinks he's a danger to his daughter Ophelia, that he's pursuing her with bad intentions. So to prove that to the king and queen, Polonius hides behind a curtain to overhear a conversation between Hamlet and his mother. Hamlet notices, and thinking it is King Claudius, he stabs him. And with the some ship to wreck, we see Florence back in the real world. She has moved from LA to London, back to London, and she's dividing. She's fighting herself. We see her twice in that image. One side is calm, and the other is very destructive, but she's fighting herself, fighting her family and friends and her partner in a never-ending cycle. Step 6, tests allies and enemies. Anakin becomes a Padawan. He'll have a lot of adventures. He'll find allies in his master Obi-Wan and his love Padme, and other Jedis, and he will find enemies like Count Dooku. This is the whole of episode 2, basically. Hamlet will live his own adventures. King Claudius turns everybody against him and takes Guildenstern and Rosencrantz as his spies. Laertes, Polonius' son, will also go back to Denmark after the hearing of the death of his father. So he will only have Horatio and the ghost of his father. And we see again inside Florence's mind. This time we are in the Scotland of her childhood. We will go back and forth between a child Florence and an adult one, trying to seek peace and calm between his family, her family, who are fighting her partner. This will represent her and her family's fight with this man. They are trying to protect her. Step 7, approach the inmost cave. In this moment, the hero will go to the edge of a very dangerous place, the Cave of the Dragon, the headquarters of a master villain. He is approaching danger. This is also when we will see Anakin's path start to deviate from the hero's path. When he marries Padme, he will start away from the ways of the Jedi, and when he starts having visions about her dying in childbirth, he will start to fall into the dark side provoked by fear. This is, again, when Senator Palpatine will start to take advantage of his vulnerabilities. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, which are the two men in the image, will try to kill Hamlet in a trip to England, when he will also be attacked by pirates. However, Hamlet tricks the executioners and gets the spies killed. Also, although he does not know it yet, Ophelia dies or kills herself after hearing of her father's death. This will also be a cause of Laertes' wrath. And during Long and Lost, we see a continuation of the previous scene with Florence, but this time she is fighting her family, who are trying to comfort her. This is when she sings, "Is it too late to come home? Are all those bridges now all stone?" Then we see her in that scene singing Mother in a bridge. She cannot feel freedom yet, but she can kind of taste it. Step 8, the ordeal. Here is when the hero will confront his biggest fear. And this is a sort of blank moment from the audience because we don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to make it. Anakin starts having nightmares about his mother dying this time. And so he will go back to Tatooine, to his planet, to try and find her, only to discover that she has been kidnapped and beaten by Tusken Riders. When he finds her, she dies in his arms, which, blinded by rage, Anakin decides to kill everyone in that tribe, men, women, and children. This ordeal, rather than making him face his fear, will only make him fall deeper into fear, despair, and violence. When Hamlet goes back to Denmark, he discovered that Ophelia is dead, and in pretending to still love her, he finds out that Laertes, that's that man over there, has arrived and he is his enemy. And by Claudius's plan, they get into a duel. A friend has told Florence to leave this purgatory, but she has said that she doesn't want to. However, he lets her cut his hair like Samson, and while singing Delilah, her friends show her that her destructive self is not the real self. Step 9, the reward. Having survived death, beaten the dragon, slayed the Minotaur, we, the audience and the hero, have a lot of reasons to be happy and to celebrate. And they can take something like a grail or a sword or a treasure, something as a reward for their ordeal. We see Anakin fall further and further away from the hero's path. There is no reward from him, only fear and anger. He accepts being at the hands of Senator Palpatine, whose fascist ideologies are more and more clear, just because he sees as the only way to save Padmé from death. For the duel, Claudius convinces Laertes to use a sharp and poisoned sword. But both Laertes and Hamlet end up exchanging swords, and both get the poisoned end. In his last moments, Laertes confesses to Hamlet Claudius's plan, and he forgives him for the death of his family and asks for forgiveness in return. Hamlet seemingly gets his life, his forgiveness, and his revenge back, because he forces Claudius to drink from a poisoned cup, which also kills his mother. Florence learns that she is no longer her destructive self and leaves the purgatory. Step 10, the road back. The hero is not out of the woods yet. This is where we will begin the Act 3. There is no going back for Anakin. He has deviated so much from the hero's path that he is only falling further and further. He kills the little children, the younglings, the apprentices. He hurts Padmé, and she eventually dies from sadness. He makes an enemy of Obi-Wan. He is no longer a Jedi, but a Sith. He is part of the dark side now. Hamlet ends up dying from the poison of the wound. His road back will not bring him back to an ordinary world in which he's happy with his family, but at least the truth has been revealed. He gets his name and his honor back. And Florence is enjoying her new freedom on top of a car. We see her back in the city, going back to her old self, the singer. Step 11, resurrection. This is often a second life and death moment where if the hero has survived the ordeal, maybe the forces of evil will try to strike him again. After the battle with Obi-Wan, Anakin is wounded to a point of near death. This is when the now Emperor Palpatine will take him and provide him with the technology to survive and move. So now under a new regime, he will rise with a new name and a new title, Darth Vader. There is no resurrection for Hamlet, he just dies. But he is no longer viewed as a madman or a villain, and he dies in the arms of Horatio. We see Florence again being carried in the arms of her partner, but he eventually lets go of her, and in return she lets him go. She's able to walk on her own again, and the men no longer carry the stones of her sins or her burdens. She rather seems to lead those men. And step 12, return with the elixir. The hero will return back to his ordinary world with this treasure or this magical element or a piece of knowledge. In the case of Anakin, he does not return to the ordinary world. His path has strayed so much from the hero's path that now a new path will begin, the path of Darth Vader. It is worth mentioning that if we take into consideration the whole of Anakin's story, both as Anakin and Vader from episodes 1 to 6, he does follow the hero's path. Then Hamlet is buried a soldier. I changed films here because the 1991 movie that I was using didn't include this last scene, but he is buried with all the corresponding insignia and salutations. He does not live to be a monarch, but he is buried a soldier. And Florence is back on the stage, reunited with her audience. She sings the verses from Third Eye, I'm the same, I'm trying to change. She is using her experience and her learnings to create music to get better and to share. So in conclusion, we have seen how we can use a very simple and recognizable structure to create very different narratives. With Anakin, it had made us connect with the character much more than if his backstory was told through flashbacks, making his downfall feel very relatable and almost unavoidable, as if it was something that would happen to any of us. With Hamlet, it has shown us a more morally gray version of the hero's journey, with darker characters and darker situations. And with Florence, which is maybe the most classical of our heroes here, we have seen an adventure, a path or an odyssey happen within somebody's inner world, showing us that anybody can go through a hero's path. So next time you're creating a story of your own, maybe try using something as simple as this structure and bending into your own rules, and you will create characters and narratives that feel very relatable and very human.